the majority of the escape rooms in the world have closed down sort of immediately. It was over a few weeks where a few of them sort of hung on and until they were actually forced to close, but people have stopped going to escape rooms.
You're listening to Tom Parslow, who combined his interest in software development and escape rooms into a full-time, profitable solopreneur business. When COVID-19 shut down his entire industry virtually overnight, Tom helped escape rooms around the world bring their games online. Today, you can find more than 100 escape rooms offering live video interaction with multiple players and real games masters through Tom's website. And you're about to hear Tom's journey and how you can join the fun, because Tom is today's guest on Solopreneur Success.
Welcome to the Solopreneur Success Podcast, where successful business owners gather to share true stories and sound advice to help you start and grow your own solopreneur business. Come soar with us and design the life you love. Now, here's your host, Steve Combs.
Hello, solopreneurs. I always love when I hear about someone who takes something they love and turns it into a profitable business that serves others, which is why I'm really happy today to interview Tom Parslow, a computer programmer and escape room enthusiast who has merged his mutual interest into an exciting solopreneur business. So Tom, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Steve. It's really great to be on.
We were talking about this like about a week or so ago, and I think I got to really have this guy on the show. This is really cool. And we have some mutual interests. And one of those things is we both started computer programming at a young age. And back in my day, I was programming TRS-80 Model 1s, Model 3s, and basic and assembly language and stuff like that as a young teen. Just curious how you got started in computer programming yourself.
I got started, I think, about 10 or 11 on a copy of HyperCard on a Mac SE. I was using it to do drawings and make little flipbook animations, and then I discovered that rather than hitting the key lots of times, I could put some words into this box, and it would do it for me. It's an amazing labor-saving device.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, they used to do like VB scripts behind Excel sheets and stuff like that, very similar. But you've grown quite a bit past the basic scripting stage. Matter of fact, I believe you had some products for sale even as a teenager. I'd like to hear about that.
Yeah. So about 15 maybe. I wrote an app in VB. I think maybe it was VB4 maybe. I think at the time, the first version, and it was at the time I had dial-up internet. Had to pay by the minute for the connections. So, and I had to give my dad money for the phone line for that. So I wanted to keep track of how much. So I knew how much of my pocket money I had to pay. So I made a program that sort of just tracked when I was on the internet and how long I'd been on. And then, at my dad's suggestion, I put it online and said if anyone likes it, they should send me some money. And initially, that was just checks in the post. Like I couldn't get a credit card processing thing or anything like that. But it kind of grew from there. And it got featured sort of later versions. I think in VB6 by this point. Still when I was around about 15. But they got featured in the computer magazines. So the computer magazines at the time always used to come with like a CD or a floppy disk on the front. So it started to be featured in those, as in a few articles and things. And I started getting checks in the post every morning, which was really, really cool.
Yeah, no kidding. And especially at that age, and I remember the shareware industry is not such a big deal anymore, it seems. I rarely see any kind of shareware software out there. It's usually either free or it's paid, one or the other. Maybe it's a subscription model, or it seems to be what's most popular these days. But that's really cool. You also have an interest in escape rooms, and we're going to kind of merge these little points together here in a sec. But tell me about how you got involved in the escape rooms.
So, I mean, originally I just I'd heard of these things, escape rooms. I initially heard of them as like a thing that was happening in Eastern Europe, and it just sounded really cool. Then they started sort of showing up in the UK. And I played a few, but not a huge amount. Then so a guy I knew in Brighton, where I'm from, started one after I think having played one on holiday in Thailand, and it was really fun. But still, that was just sort of like a little interest. It's quite fun to play these things. Then my dad got a job as a games master because my friend who was running the escape room, he knew that my dad's retired. My dad does a lot of kind of theatre type of things. So he thought it'd be quite good to sort of play their games masters sort of play a role. So they're essentially, it's like an acting job. So he did that for a while. He really enjoyed it. It was a really cool little part-time job for him. But he noticed that they were handing out these little business cards after each game saying, please leave us a review on TripAdvisor. And he was asking me, well, why isn't there software that does this? And so, yeah, I started talking to the guy who was running the escape room. It turns out they were sending out team photos after each game, which someone was manually taking the photos, photoshopping them, adding graphics and branding over the top, entering stuff on like a text layer in Photoshop, saving them out. I think it was going through WhatsApp several times. Like the photo would be WhatsApp to this guy. He'd do that, then he'd WhatsApp it back, then someone else would attach it to an email. There's quite a lot going on, and I was
no
like,
kidding.
I could automate that as well. And they were like, oh yeah, that sounds good. And that's the software was born.
Wow, yeah, that's just just recognizing a need in the industry, or somebody telling you, say, look, there's a need in this industry, and couldn't you do something about this? And that's just an idea of you have somebody who knows what you can do and sees a need and kind of makes that connection too, which is awesome. In this case, it was your dad, but he is also involved in the escape room industry, so that's really cool. So how long did it take you to go from the idea of like, here's something that can be done to here's some software I can actually sell?
The very first version, so I was working as a freelance developer at the time, so this was sort of like in bits of time that I could find. But I built the first version probably over little bits of free time over a week or something. It was probably a few hours work in total for this first version. It was not very good. It was absolutely awful, in fact. It was just good enough that if you used it, when they used it, they were like, well, if this wasn't rubbish, then we would use this, which was enough encouragement to improve it a little bit. I managed to get that version of it to the point where they were using it. It wasn't very good, but it was better than not having it. Once I kind of got it to that stage, it wasn't even called Buzzshot at that time. It didn't even really have a name. And yeah, once we got to that point, kind of realized that this is actually something I think it's going to work. So I took a week off of my freelance work and built a slightly better version of the product. Before it was just a web page essentially. So I built a mobile app in React Native with an actual back end and with all kinds of bits that you would actually need. And also, crucially, at this point, I made it multi-tenant so that I could actually have more than one user using it. And I put all that together, got the original people using that. Obviously, it's much better now. They're a lot happier. They're quite keen on it. And then decided I was going to sell it to other people, which was always the plan from the beginning. But this seemed like the time to do it. So I put together a web page for it, and then it kind of just didn't go anywhere for a little bit. I just didn't really know how to actually get to the next stage. So I tried a bit of direct phone marketing. So I got a list of all the escape room companies in the UK. I just started calling them. And that was horrible. I absolutely hate doing cold calling. I mean, to the point where I'd actually get a stomachache when each time I did it. That was how stressed I was by it.
You're not alone there. There's so many people that just absolutely hate cold calling. So when you called somebody like that, though, what did you offer? Did you offer like a trial of it, or how did that conversation go?
Well, back then, I was not even at the stage where I didn't even really know how I was going to sell it. So all I was doing was calling them up and saying, I've got some software for escape rooms. Can I talk to you? Are you interested in it? And everyone was really nice to me, which is good. I was really worried that people were going to be really horrible to me because I was calling them out of the blue. Everyone was really nice, but also no one was really interested. So I guess a lot of, thank you very much for calling us. Could you just put it in an email and we'll get back to you? Of course, they never did, which is fair enough. So I did that for a while, and it just sort of, I was beginning to think, well, maybe if I've called this amount of people and not one of them has bit, then maybe this is not the amazing opportunity that I thought it was. And then just by chance, someone emailed to ask about it, and they had not found it because of any of the people I've been emailing, or the people who have been trying to spread the word for me or anything like that. This person, she was on Twitter, I think setting up a Twitter account for her escape room, and I had set up a Twitter account because I just sort of done I'll set up all the social media. That's part of marketing, right? I set up a Twitter account, and I had made one tweet that just said something like escape room software and linked to the site. That was it. And then I hadn't done anything else. I think mostly that was just to grab the name. And somehow she had just been recommended by Twitter to follow me. So somehow the algorithm had decided this person should follow you. She had gone there, she'd gone to the website, she couldn't figure out what it was. So I hadn't described it well enough in the website for her to really figure out what it did at all. But for some reason, she was just like, well, this is software. I don't know what this is, but it's obviously aimed at me. It's for people running escape rooms. So she emailed me, and I was like, oh, should we talk on the phone? I got on the phone. We chatted. It turned out that yes, actually, she did want what I was making. She was like, oh, that sounds really good. And yeah, then we kind of like got her set up on the software, and through a lot of it was a long time. It was maybe a month of kind of like she'd use it and be like, well, this is okay, but like I can't use it because of this. So it was about a month of, I think, talking on the phone or on Skype almost every day with like, this is the new list of reasons why I can't use this. I mean, obviously, like she'd seen something and decided she really did need this kind of thing. And yeah, eventually we kind of got it to a point where she was willing to pay for it.
That's awesome. So it really turned her into a beta user, and she gives you all this terrific feedback, so you actually have useful software and know exactly what you need. That's terrific. Yeah,
and once I was like, well, I mean, this one person is willing to pay for it. She was now on a subscription, and and still is. So so then that kind of gave me the motivation to just jump back in and just carry on going and trying all the things to get in touch with people.
Gotcha. So when you got to that place where she said, okay, this is useful enough where I can actually pay for it, and this is worth the investment, how did you go back into the marketing stage at that point?
So yeah, I still didn't really know what I was doing, but I think I started getting a bit involved in the Facebook groups. So it turns out that all of the escape room people, they communicate via Facebook. So there aren't forums, there aren't really mailing lists. There are lots and lots of Facebook groups. So, there are Facebook groups for enthusiasts. There are Facebook groups for owners. There are Facebook groups for just people who are generally in the industry. And yeah, I started going on those, being very, very careful because you don't want to get a reputation as someone who's spamming these groups. So, I think I kind of like, if the group rules allowed it, I'd make one post about my software once, and then I'd just try and come up with useful things. So like, was someone asking a question I knew the answer to? I can reply to that and be helpful, and just general things like that. And then if someone was asking, specifically, how do you do this? Then I would start jumping in and be like, oh, my software does this. Although I think I tried to do the thing where I'd be like, well, you could do it like this. Here's the way you can do it with free software. I also make software that does this, and that might be a lot easier for you.
Yeah, that's a great way, because you're providing value here.
Yeah,
and it's not just the hard sell, like, oh, buy my software, but it's rather this is great for anybody to hear, because Facebook and other social media is a great tool for this interaction, but you have to approach it in the right way. And I like what you said there, that you can't just go out there and spam the group. You need to provide value and interact with the community. That's what brings value, and people appreciate that. Come across as a spammer, if you're not banned from the group, you'll certainly be ignored very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to start. You want people to start recognizing you and knowing who you are, but you don't want them to start recognizing you because you've been posting all the time and they don't like it. And yeah, especially I feel like in an industry like the escape room industry, it's not a big industry. I think it wouldn't take a lot for people to start realizing that if you weren't being upfront with everyone, then I don't think it would take people very long to notice and for that to get around. So I think it's really, really important to, I mean, always, but especially in this kind of situation, to be as good as you can, and try and be providing value all the time.
It sounds like you said, the industry is not huge, but you found a great niche for your software. What happens, if somebody else comes in the marketplace? Do you have competition in the market for the kind of software you offer at this point, or is it still something that you've kind of got cornered the market on?
Yeah, no, I do have competition now, which I think by this point it would be really worrying if I didn't. So I've got one competitor who came out just after me, as far as I'm aware. I don't think they copied me, because I think with the timeline, probably we came up with the ideas independently and were working on it at the same time, unless they were very, very quick. So, and yeah, I think they started off a little bit different to me, but then they maybe saw features I was doing that they liked. I think I probably saw features they were doing. So we got more similar, although we've always luckily had quite a kind of differentiating thing in that they seem to be, they're very much more about they're very much, the software is them, and your players sign up with them and have accounts on their software. Whereas I've always been, I try to be out of the way. I think the players shouldn't know about Buzzshot. I think that's something the owners should know about. It should be something that's making their players' lives better. But it should be, as sort of transparent as possible for the players. So that's something that's luckily a kind of a differentiator. I think that's kept us a little bit apart. And then since then, of course, there's been various other software like this. There's some which are just sort of direct copies. Someone's tried to clone the software. That goes about as well as you'd expect. I occasionally get people coming to me and saying like, "Oh, I heard you all like this software, but only you're actually good." So I think, if anything, the people making those clones of all they've done is provided me with advertising. I don't think there's that many people who are happily using them.
Well, that's always good when you get that reputation in the industry as well. So today, do more people find you by the website and the social media still? Is that still your primary form of marketing?
Yeah. So today, I mean, I'm kind of in a position now, which is amazing, where people tell each other about the software, and enough people use the software now that people tend to hear about us, especially in the UK. That's, I think, we've got quite a large percentage of the escape rooms use my software, use BuzzShot. Pretty much everyone has heard of BuzzShot, which is really good. Usually when I speak to someone, they're like, "Oh yes, I've been meaning to check that out." In the States, it's a little, it's a much bigger market. We've got a lot of people there, but there's much more total. So I think there's probably still people who haven't really heard of the software, which is good. We'll get to those. But yeah, mostly word of mouth. That is the biggest thing. But after that, there's also, I'm still trying to be involved in the Facebook groups. I do a bit of content marketing. Some articles I write myself. So I've experimented with getting in people to write them. My dad actually did a whole series of articles sort of about being a Gamesmaster, which did quite well. And then the other big thing is go to conferences. So there are conferences for the escape room industry.
So how well attended are those? I'm just curious.
I think so Up the Game is the biggest European one, like maybe 600-700 people.
Wow, that's a pretty good turnout, especially for the size industry you're talking about. That's awesome. Do you do a table there or anything, or do you just interact with the crowd, or you speak, or how do you use those to build your business?
So the very first time I just went just as an individual. I just paid for a normal attendee ticket. I took a little iPad, an iPad mini, and then I spent the entire conference just going between different groups of people, chatting to them, and usually waiting for them to ask, "What do you do?" And then saying, "Oh yeah, I make software for escape rooms." And then if they were interested and they were like, "Oh, can I see more about that?" I'd be like, "Well, I've got my tablet here," and I give them a demo. And that worked really well. I definitely picked up a whole bunch of people who were looking at the software from that. It was absolutely exhausting, but it was pretty good. After that, so the next year, I was doing a lot better. I actually had a bunch of customers by then. From that point on, I actually get a booth now. Yeah, so I get have an area, got my backdrop, like stretched fabric backdrop, and a bunch of other stuff like that. Some tablets for demoing. And yeah, I spent most of the conference sort of stood in there, and then people come and talk to me.
That's terrific. Now, of course, we're in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic still as we record this, and I imagine that had a pretty significant impact on the escape room industry. So, how did that affect your business?
Yeah. So had a huge impact because the majority of the escape rooms in the world closed down sort of immediately. It was over a few weeks where a few of them sort of hung on until they were actually forced to close, but people have stopped going to escape rooms. The first thing we did, before lockdown was in place here, but to kind of realize that suddenly all our customers' business has gone away. We tried to get ahead of that by sending out an email quite early on, just saying if anyone needs to pause their subscriptions, you can do that. Pause your subscriptions. You don't have to pay for anything, but we'll keep your account around. And then when things get better, you can come back. And it turned out that over the next few weeks, most people did that. Which
that kind of shuts down your whole income stream then. So that's that was great from a customer service standpoint, but horrible from a business standpoint as far as profitability. So how did you handle that? I know you pivoted, but I'd love to hear how you about that decision and what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was just really lucky to be in a position where I could do what I considered the right thing. I know there are other companies that just could not do that because they have too many commitments. I know there are definitely companies who have just saying like, no, you're locked into a contract. You're just going to carry on. You just got to carry on paying us. We can't do anything else. No, but I thought that was the right thing to do. And also, I thought that any escape room that goes out of business is not going to be my customer anymore anyway. So better to do everything we can to help them stay in business so that they can come back and be customers for lots longer later on. So obviously that sort of almost overnight, slashed the income way down to almost nothing. Luckily, it's a very small company. I'm the only full-time person. There's also Carl, who works in sort of a freelance basis, but it does work quite a lot. But he's a freelancer, so I kept him on his retainer. But he was really, really flexible with that, and he was he's fantastic. I had to insist that he carried on getting paid. But anyway, we didn't really have any other outgoings. The server costs, I was able to ramp all the servers way down because no one's using it. Other costs are things like sending SMS messages that the product does. Of course, that just didn't have to do anything about that. That wasn't costing me anything anymore. Massively cut down the expenditure and had some money in the account in the business as well. So I made the decision that we were going to get a bunch of development work done by I was bringing in some other developers. So I finally decided that maybe I shouldn't do all the development work, and to do that, I built up a bit of cash to pay them. I was able to keep that and to be able to survive without any revenue for quite a while, and while still paying sort of cut my own wages way down, which of course didn't matter at all because what are you going to spend money on during a pandemic? My outgoings have gone to almost nothing. I don't really have anything to spend money on at the moment, so that was okay.
I wanted to point out something to our listeners. Here's the big deal. Tom had a reserve of cash, and we actually just had a podcast recently with David Safir who talks about cash flow management. And if you just sit there and you're spending every single penny that comes in as quickly as it comes in, it's not a great position to be in when the unexpected happens. And obviously, I think COVID was unexpected for most who were affected by it. But the pivot for you still had software development going on, but that software development meant that you had the ability to do a new product. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So once we sort of we scaled everything down, and then for the first sort of few weeks of that, my time was mostly spent dealing with people who were pausing their accounts and dealing with questions about that. And and that was quite draining. So I really wasn't doing anything else. But after a while, we got a handle on that. Started thinking about what can I do? What can I do that's useful and gives me some kind of purpose during this. And the thing that I noticed that people had started talking about escape room owners started talking about they had all kinds of ideas for what can we do to survive this. And one of the things people were talking about is, can we run our rooms remotely? And it was just people talking at that point. So that sounded really interesting to me because that's one of those thoughts I think quite a lot of people had before. Could you play an escape room through video streaming? I definitely discussed it with people at conferences before, and it's always been well, maybe, but I mean, why would you? It was more of an interesting thing that I wonder if that would work rather than an actual this makes sense to do. But of course, people are suddenly talking well, can we do this? How would we do this? And my initial thoughts were to make some software. I started specking out, started discussing with Carl, what kind of software I could build, what would be useful. And but I kind of pretty quickly realized that one, it was too early to really know. I didn't really know what people wanted because this wasn't even an area of the industry that existed. No one had even launched one of these games yet. I didn't know what software they needed to help them do it. And also, no one's got any money. Everyone's just had their business destroyed. No one's going to want to pay me for software right now. So I thought I'd put that to one side, and I just thought I'd try and just help people who were thinking of doing this. And I thought that had two benefits really. One is every escape room that manages to find some other revenue stream and stays alive is another escape room that's still going to exist after the pandemic. That's good for me. That's good for everyone. And also, I'm thinking I'm probably going to build some software at some point if this works. So best way of preparing for that is to be talking to the people who are doing this a lot and to be helping them and generally, get to a point where people will listen to me. So the first thing I did, the very first thing I did was I sent out an email to everyone on my mailing list. So all my customers plus other people who have expressed an interest in the past, just saying, what do you think of this? This is what I've been hearing. Who's thinking of doing this? What help do you need? What are your problems? Had some really, really interesting conversations from that. Quite a few conversations with people who were just like, well, no, this isn't never going to work. I don't think this is a good idea at all. And a lot of conversations with people saying, yeah, we're interested, or even people going like, yes, we're actually trying this. So I created a Facebook group. So I thought best thing to do, get everyone together. Created a Facebook group called Live Video Escape Rooms. Invited everyone who said they might be interested. And that was fantastic. So I had this group where that started to be where all the discussion was happening. So people were talking about, what you can do and how you might be able to do stuff. Yeah, I was trying to be my take on the role of, I was just sort of trying to talk to everyone and then synthesize stuff. And so when someone would ask, how do I do this? How do I stream video? I could say, well, this is what most people are using. This is why they're using it. These are the other things that people are considering right now. And I think that was really useful to a lot of people, because it was just like getting all that information just spread out as much as possible.
You had a great conversation. That's something else that's really important. Is a lot of people don't really take the time to talk to their market, and they build something or create something that nobody's really interested in or doesn't really serve the needs of the market. I think that's really smart. It's forward thinking, but it's also smart. And you want to talk to the market to find out what's missing or what do they really need, and keep that conversation going. I think that's a missed opportunity here, especially for solopreneurs. They're so busy head down in their business, they don't talk to their market. I think it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've been guilty of that before. It's always, I write code, and so it's always a lot easier for me just to jump into writing code and to develop software. This approach, where I've spent a lot of time before just talking to people and helping them, and not really having any particular fixed idea of what I was going to build or what I was going to do, I think worked really, really well. The next thing I built after that was I realized that in order for any of these people to be successful, they were going to have to have players, and players didn't currently know that this was an option. So I built livevideoescaperooms.com, which is a listing site. I'd actually previously worked on a listing site for escape rooms. I kind of shelved after I kind of decided I didn't really have anything unique really to add to what was already out there. But I had this code, so I just sort of took that and was able to, in a few days of hacking, rip it all apart and put it back together again as livevideoescaperooms.com.
That's awesome. Tell us what actually live video escape rooms does. So I'm a customer. I'm interested in an escape room, but I can't go to my local escape room because they're closed. What actually happens when somebody goes there?
Yeah, so my website there is just a listing site. So I'm listing, I'm taking reviews and ranking people by them, all that kind of stuff. What the actual games are, which I don't think I described before, but the games are mostly where people have taken their existing escape room. So this is a room where you would usually go, get locked in with people, with some friends, have to solve puzzles to get out again. And they're taking the Gamesmaster, whose usually would be to lock you in and maybe deliver clues. They're giving them a camera, usually just a phone, like an iPhone or something. Then you sort of join them and you see through the camera that they've got, and they show you around the room, and you ask them to to do stuff and to try combinations and stuff, and you basically play the escape room as if you were there, but through using the Gamesmaster sort of as your avatar.
Okay, so they actually do the work of opening the clues or fulfilling the tasks.
Yeah, and that actually works a lot better than you'd expect. It's actually really fun, and you can have a bunch of friends all on a Zoom call, all involved. So when I'm playing, I usually play with 4 to 5 friends, and it's a really nice social thing. For me, escape rooms have always been the social thing. I don't go just because I like puzzles. I go because it's something I can do with my friends, and it's fun. Yeah, you get the same kind of thing except remotely, which is fantastic when you're all stuck at home and really craving some kind of social interaction. It's much nicer than just having Zoom drinks again.
That's really cool. Let me ask you this: let's say somebody comes into live video escape rooms. One that I think that's really cool is that you could actually be playing, I could be sitting here in the United States, so I could actually be playing in an escape room, Eastern Europe or something, as you mentioned, that was where kind of started at. So that really gives you the ability to see many more escape rooms than most people would ever have the ability to see unless they're a world traveler. So that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been playing games that I would never have got to play otherwise. I've been playing games all over Europe, all over the States, and that's fantastic. Yeah, and it's just really interesting to see like people who previously had a business that's very kind of localized. So there are some escape rooms which are so well known that people travel from all over the place to play them. But a lot of escape rooms they're built for the local market. They're just you wouldn't usually expect that many other people to play them, and suddenly they're open to the entire world, and that's pretty cool.
That is. It sounds like something that even after COVID's done, this will probably be a continuing income stream, I would think.
Yes, I think so. And I think that's going to vary by different places. How much escape rooms cost varies a lot all over the world. But I think how much people are willing to pay for an online experience is pretty uniform, because it doesn't really matter where they are. So some places, this is a really good revenue stream, and this totally makes sense. And other places, maybe not so much. And then there are quite a few places where they'd rather run a live game. That's currently making them more money, but they can't. So they will run these. And of course, you can do things like you can run your live video games at night. I know one guy who is like running games till 6 a.m. every night at the moment. And I have no idea how he does it, because I speak to him like in his daytime, and he seems to be awake and fully okay. And I don't know when he sleeps, but it is possible you can do that.
That's crazy. One last question for you today. What's next on the horizon for you? I know you have some other projects in the works as well. What else is going on?
Yeah, so after all that, I sort of went back to the idea of actually making software for these things. And one of the things that people have been doing is they've been providing inventories alongside the live video. So, and what that means is you're finding lots of stuff in the room. So, escape rooms often involve a lot of stuff that you find, and you have to combine it. And if it's all just through live video, that can get a bit confusing, because you have to keep on asking the Gamesmaster, "Oh, what do we have? Can you put the camera back onto that table? Let's see all the things we've got." So what people started doing was providing sort of basically image galleries. And people would repurpose various sort of image galleries software, like people were using Adobe Lightroom galleries to some success. And they were trying to reveal. You want to reveal stuff as people find them. You don't want it all to be there to start with, because that would be overwhelming, and also would mean people would just skip ahead in the game. And some people have built their kind of own custom stuff or sort of coupled together WordPress plugins to do it. So I decided that's probably the best place to start. So I built a software called Telescape Live, which is an inventory system for these kind of games. So the idea is this software, you've got Zoom running, and then in another window next to it, or on your phone, you've got my software running. And whenever you find something in the room, it will just automatically ping onto my software. It makes a little noise. The new sort of icon appears, and you can tap it. You can look at the thing, and it supports all kinds of things. It supports videos, pictures, 360 views, which are really cool. So a lot of people now will supply a 360 photo of the room, so that people can be looking sort of around the room and sort of then be like, "Oh, could you go and look over by the table over there? I think there's something over there."
Oh, that's really awesome. Yeah. So you just really just keep finding these different ways to use software to really magnify the effectiveness of virtual escape rooms. I think it's really cool. Wow, this has been a fascinating conversation for you, Tom, and I'd love for folks to take a look at what you're doing, if you're doing escape rooms, or just want to check out an escape room. I've been always wanted to go to an escape room with a family, just never have made it out to one, and I'm seriously thinking I'd like to try these virtual escape rooms until I can get to one in person. So where would people find you at?
So if you want to find out more about the escape rooms, then I would go to livevideoescaperooms.com. My software is at buzzshot.co and telescapelive.com. And then if you want to find me on the internet, on Twitter, I'm almost obsolete on Twitter. Although that is usually personal and technical stuff, less escape room type of stuff.
Awesome. Well, hey, Tom, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you for listening to the Solopreneur Success Podcast. We hope you discovered valuable advice on how to start and grow your own successful solopreneur business. If you liked the podcast, you'll love the all-new Solopreneur Success Connections community at solopreneurcoach.com. Here you'll get exclusive access to our private, members-only community of business builders, free business building resources, and live online monthly training designed to accelerate your business success. Join us now at solopreneurcoach.com.
Hey Solopreneurs, it's Steve Combs again. You can find all the show notes for this episode at solopreneurcoach.com/028. And if you're looking for something fun and exciting to do, be sure to check out the many escape rooms you can play live on Tom's website at livevideoescaperooms.com. Thank you for listening.